For this lesson, I'm going to talk to you about how to distinguish between a dependent clause and an independent clause. If you remember from the definition, the main distinction is that they either can stand alone and are independent, like an adult, or they cannot stand alone and are dependent, meaning they have to attach themselves to an actually independent clause in order to be part of a sentence. So you can think of it as an adult and a child. A child would be dependent on their parents. This is important to know because it will help you in second quarter when we try to use commas correctly. Knowing if you have dependence and independence and where they're at in the sentence determines whether or not you need the comma or not. And I see a lot of students who use commas incorrectly, so hopefully after we learn distinguishing between dependence and independence, that won't be the case. So for each of the underlined parts of the sentence, just simply ask yourself, could it stand alone as a single thought or a single sentence? If the answer is yes, then you would mark it as I for independent. If the answer is no, then you would mark it as dependent. So let's get going. The first one says, some people use Twitter for business networking. So say it out loud or say it out loud in your head. Some people use Twitter for business networking. That's a complete thought, so we would mark it as independent and put an I in the blank. The next underlined part says, they encourage others to try it. They encourage others to try it. We already know it's a clause. It's got a subject verb. The question is, can it stand alone as a single sentence? They would be your subject. Encourage is your verb. They encourage others to try it can stand alone, which many students missed on the test. So just keep in mind, if it could just stand alone as a single sentence, it would be independent. The next one says, I have used Twitter this past year. That, of course, could stand alone. I being your subject, have used is your verb. The next one says, while many of these users are posting short updates on their classroom, school, and district experiences, okay, that's rather lengthy, so some students might have marked that as independent, but still ask yourself the question, could it stand alone? The fact that it starts with while is kind of a clue because those are subordinate conjunctions, meaning they typically show you that a dependent clause is being used to link a dependent to an independent. But just saying, well, many of these users are posting short updates, just that statement right there tells you something is missing. It would have to attach itself, so that is a dependent. The next one says, others, meaning other people, others are posting interesting media content related to education. Okay, that could stand alone. Others are posting. That in and of itself is a complete thought. And if you knew that commas are used with introductory dependent clauses, then you would have known that that could stand alone. But we'll get to that second quarter. The next paragraph is, Twitter can be just a fun resource for following interesting people. That's a complete thought. Who goes by Bad Banana on Twitter? The word who is kind of confusing for some students, but we already know it's a clause. We just have to decide, could it stand alone or not. Who goes by Bad Banana on Twitter? Who goes by Bad Banana on Twitter? That can't stand alone, so it's dependent. Keep in mind that when you use who, it can be seen as your subject, so that's why it's still considered a clause. Who would be your subject, goes would be your verb. The next one, who has published a book of his hilarious tweets, same thing, it would be dependent, it can't stand alone. The next one, while this may not interest everyone on Twitter, once again we have the word while, which tells us ding, 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 hey, it's a dependent clause. While this may not interest everyone on Twitter, cannot stand alone. I think we missed one. One above that was, he has over 400,000 followers. That is an independent thought, independent statement. The next one, plenty of people have obviously found Seidel interesting. Plenty of people have found him interesting. Plenty of people find it interesting. Just say that over and over again and you'll realize, hey, that's an independent thought, so you'd mark it as independent. A cool feature story called The Funniest Guy in Link appeared in the Journal Star. Okay, that's an independent statement. The next one, the article is available on the online edition. The article is available online. The article is available on the online edition. See how that could stand alone, so it's independent. Next one, plenty of other funny and insightful tweeters are sharing their witticisms on a regular basis. Plenty of other funny tweeters are sharing their information. Something like that. You know it can stand alone. Also, the comma tells you it could stand alone. Next one, why not give it a try? This one some students got wrong because they forgot that you can have an understood you as your subject. Okay, so if I made the statement, why not give it a try? Why not try it? Those are independent thoughts and can stand alone. I might suggest Jim Gaffigan. I might suggest him. Okay, independent statement. Next one, because his comedy is appropriate for all ages. Because his comedy is appropriate for all ages. Cannot stand alone. Okay, and once again, because is kind of like while. It's a subordinate conjunction. So you know you are linking a dependent with an independent. Next sentence begins with, you could also check out Tony Falcone. Okay, independent thought. The next one, since his observations about his daughter are great. Okay, if you just pull that out of the sentence and say it to yourself, since his observations about his daughter are great, that cannot stand alone. So it's a dependent attaching itself to an independent. It's important to note that there's no comma there because the dependent's coming after the independent. We're going to talk about